Alright, so now we switched over to a V-Ray dome light, or as you might know it, a V-Ray or a IBL from Mental Ray. Image-based lighting can be done in a few different ways in V-Ray. The first and commonly used easiest way is to go to the globals, and under V-Ray environment we have an override environment control, and you can map any one of these. So people often map the GI texture and reflection texture and even the background texture with a dome based HDRI image, and that's fine, but offers fewer controls than using a V-Ray dome light. So I'm going to go over that method. So let's check out, again, it's under Create Lights, V-Ray dome light, and that's what we've created here. So this dome light has a texture applied to it. It's an HDRI that we can check out here. Just a simple chrome sphere image I did years ago. Nothing spectacular, but let's spawn off a new render. Now there's a few options with a dome light that we should cover. One, of course, is that we enable it. I see I've default left it off, so we turn it on and we've got our default scene. The intensity multiplier is just a nice handy way to control the brightness of your HDR. They're not all the same. So that's something your environment wouldn't have if you plugged your HDR into the environment area that I showed you earlier. The only way you could control its brightness is to go to the texture itself, or the file node, and adjust its gain. This is just a little more straightforward and easier to deal with. The other option is dome spherical. If that's unchecked, which it is by default, you'll only use the top hemisphere of your dome light. So if I'm doing true IBL, image-based lighting, I'll switch that over to dome spherical. Obviously use the dome texture, and the dome texture is piped in from our HDRI, and we can adjust the texture resolution on the fly. So this is currently using 1024 pixels wide. That's also in our viewport display, which is a new feature. You can disable viewport display or enable it, and you can see that environment in the Maya scene, which is very handy. That's also set to 1024, and so it also converts it to sRGB space, so it gives you a very proper representation in the viewport instead of some flat linear image. Now, one of the first things most people ask about image-based lighting is how do we rotate the position of this, because if you just grab the light, which is what I have currently selected, the dome light, and rotate it, you'll see it does absolutely nothing. It doesn't change how the environment is mapped onto that light. Yeah, it looks like not any single angle adjustment actually does anything to the dome light or IBL position itself. To adjust that, we'll go to the texture node. It's actually handiest to go to the hypershade and graph out the dome light. So that's what I've already done. So there's the dome light, here's our HDRI texture, and this is the node that we're looking for, the V-Ray place environment texture. That allows us to control a few things. It's horizontal and vertical rotation, and they've also got horizontal and vertical flips. And also handy is if you're not using a latitude unwrapped image, you can use angulars, cubics, mirror ball, any sort of image you want. The one we're using is spherical or latitude distorted. You want to adjust the rotation horizontally of your image, it's all in the horizontal rotation. And likewise, there's vertical rotation controls, which are used less frequently. Not that you'd really want to flip your HDRI entirely, but I'm sure there's certain cases where you'd want to. Now you might notice, let's check out our image again. Let's view that. we do have more or less a sun coming from a particular direction. So we should get some definition of shadows. Let's turn this material down a little bit so that we can get a better sense of where shadows are falling. Now you can see as I've let it refine that our HDRI does have a soft, low sun that it's slightly overcast in that day. And you can see that V-Ray is picking up the shadow definition. There is directionality to the shadow, which is a great advantage to using V-Ray dome lights, because they are fully adaptive and will importance sample your dome light, so the brightest areas get the most samples and we'll get nice clean shadow directionality. Now that can be better illustrated with perhaps another HDR. Now here in this example you can see some very particular direct shadows. It's because I'm using an image. Let's view the HDR image we're using here. It's a blurred image of a flashlight I found online. I'm not quite sure who contributed this image, so my apologies for whoever might come across their own image here, but they did put it up there for people to use, and I'm just showing how it's working. But it's an HDR of a flashlight illuminating a scene, and it shows very clearly that the V-Ray light or dome light is image-based and is being importance sampled, so that we're getting very defined shadows from our HDRI. Again, a huge advantage over Mental Ray's methods of handling image-based lighting. So there you go for the dome light. I'll just quickly show. Let's hide the dome light. Alright, so let's create a sphere light. And you'll see that is pretty much what it says, is a spherical light suitable for imitating the fall off of, say, a bulb, light bulb, or a Chinese lantern, something larger. And pretty much has all the same settings as the rectangle light, so there's not much more to go over with that. Very similar setup. And there you go. So that's the basics of V-Ray lights. We'll get into some more lighting technique and concepts for how to light certain subjects in later videos. So thanks a lot for watching, and take care.